Okay, so this summer I decided to try a door-to-door sales job, and the idea was pretty simple. If I worked hard enough, I could make more money than most people my age, develop one of the most valuable skills in business, sales, and obviously gain real life experience. And on paper, this seems like the perfect summer job, but after spending weeks training, knocking on hundreds of doors, getting rejected more times than I can count, and eventually quitting after a month, I realized something. Online, almost nobody is telling you the full story. And what I mean by that is because usually door to door has two opinions. Either it's the worst thing ever, they think it's a scam and like it's ruining young people's life,
Working as a door-to-door salesman has to be bottom 5 worst jobs of all time.
or they think it's the greatest opportunity ever and then you can get filthy rich from doing just door to door.
A reminder here, look, if you want to prevent doors like that from slamming in your face and you want to get to the highest level as a door-to-door salesperson, I teamed up here with EcoShield. This is their #1 salesperson in the country, industry record, $1 million man within a 4-month summary, Avery. And we're going to go door to door and we're going to show you how to
And after actually doing it myself, I don't think that either side is completely right. But instead of trying to convince you of something, I'm just gonna tell you my full experience and then see for yourself if you think door to door is worth it. I first became interested in door to door when I was 17, about to turn 18. And like most people my age, I was looking for a job, but I didn't want any regular job where I would have to clock in, clock out, and learn nothing. I wanted something that could help me in the future, and door to door seemed to check every box. I could learn sales, get real life business experience, and since it's 100% commission, there isn't really a limit to how much you can make. Originally, I was with a company called Vintage, and it's one of the biggest door to door companies in Canada, if not the biggest actually. And they operate pretty much everywhere in Canada, and they sell pest control. So before summer even started, I spent a few months training with them and learning their sales system. But there was one problem. I live in Montreal, and the team they had assigned to me was located in Ottawa. And this is something they actually do quite often. They locate people in different places from where they actually live. I think the reason they do it is because door to door has one of the biggest turnover rates. So in a way for to push people to like fully lock in, they have to bring them like to places outside of the city. And even though I think it is a great experience, I just personally couldn't do it. So I decided to switch for another company a bit before summer started, and they do actually drive reselling. And this is the company you guys see right here. So a couple of weeks went by, and then school ended, and then I did my very first day working door to door. And on my very first day, I made 2 sales. And I gotta talk about the first day because the first day is so important. That like it pretty much almost makes or break your whole like door to door, like if you're gonna stick or not. Because when you actually get blessed of getting a sale on that first day, it makes you understand like, okay, this is hard, but this is actually possible. People actually buy this, and I can actually like make money from this. But when you don't get a sale on your first day, it feels impossible. And I get why. You spent 6 to 7 hours knocking, getting rejected the whole day, and then when you come home you have nothing to show for it. It generally feels impossible. And even on the days where like I got to sell my first day and then like all the days I wouldn't, it still like makes you think it's impossible, even though like the day before you get a sell. I don't know if that makes sense. Most of the people after I leave quit on the first day, so that just tells you how hard it is. So my biggest advice for the first day is that like if you don't get a sell on your first day, like don't like think too much about it, because genuinely in your head you're gonna be mentally exhausted, you're gonna hate it, and you're gonna think it's impossible. But your first day does not mean anything. And even if you do get a sell, it doesn't mean that like you're good for the rest of the summer or whatever. On other days where you're not gonna get a sell, it's still gonna make you like think it's impossible now. Like it's really weird, but you just have to do it to experience it. And something that they also told me is that with door you gotta be all in and all out. And like I said, I think that's why like companies like Vintage make people relocate to other places during the summer, so they fully focus on the door to door. But because I did it where I lived, I still was like, I'm still gonna do this thing with my friends, I'm still gonna work on other skills I'm trying to get at. And I quickly realized when summer started that wasn't gonna be the case. So originally I wanted to spend like maybe 2 hours a day coding, and then finding some extra time either in the weekends or like after work to work a bit on YouTube, making YouTube videos. But my days quickly just went from waking up, going to the gym, waiting to go to work, going to work, coming back home, and that's it. Like really, like it sounds like I'm exaggerating, but it's not. With door to door, I don't know what it is, but when you're new to sales, you're generally gonna have to focus and put your whole mind in it. For most of you guys, and I could say even for myself, door to door is gonna be one of the hardest things you guys will have done yet. And I remember when I was doing the training with Vintage, one of the guys literally told me like, try to do the hardest amount of things now, because you gotta callous your mind for when summer actually happens, because he told me like, truly, I'm telling you, like, door is gonna be the hardest thing you ever did. So try to be disciplined right now, try to do the hardest thing you could. So I would give you guys the same advice. If you guys are gonna do it, try to do hard things now, so like this, when you do get to summer and like your mind is a little bit more ready for it. But at the end of the day, you won't be ready, like it's still gonna be a hit of the face, but you might just recover better from it. After a couple of days, I started getting used to it. Knocking on doors became normal, and I started getting closer to my coworkers. And this was something that was really great, because most of us were pretty young, and we all had one thing in common: we were hungry for success. And pretty much all of us was just using door to door as a stepping stool for greater opportunities later in life. To later on do our own thing. And that's something I want to talk about with door to door, is that you're probably gonna make not necessarily a lot of friends, but like good connections with people that are most likely gonna at least go a bit far in life. So a couple of days went by, then weeks went by. The first 2 weeks passed by, and by that time I was a pretty average salesman. I was averaging one sale a day, nothing special. And then came my third week, which was my personal best. I made 10 sales that week, and I remember on one day I made 3 sales. And that's when it really hit me, like, oh, I can really do this, bro. And I know I keep repeating it, but like this is something that's gonna come along a lot of time when you do door to door. On days when you make sales, you're like, yeah, like this can work. And then on days where you don't make any sales, it's gonna feel impossible. So always try to stay at a neutral phase, I would say. But yeah, after that third week, I was like, okay, yeah, if I lock in, can make even more money than that. Use more effectively the resources I had. But after the third week, that's when everything changed. The week that came afterwards, I made 2 sales. Not in one day, the whole week I made 2 sales. And that's when, usually in door to door, that's what we call a slump. And mentally that hit me hard. The problem wasn't just money, it was that like I generally felt like I was doing everything right. I was practicing, I was working hard, I was staying positive, but the results weren't there. Like I knew sales came with ups and downs, but like this really hit me hard. I told myself, no worries, this is what happened. I gave myself 2 to 4 weeks to see, how it goes. And then if I really see that it's like this, then I'm leaving. But sadly, things didn't get better. Next week, I was assigned to a neighborhood that I later found out that there was like 3 other door-to-door companies that came before me. And somehow the first day I was able to get a sale. And then on Tuesday, didn't get a sale. Wednesday, didn't get a sale. And then Thursday, I woke up, I was like, there's no way I'm going to work today. By that point, I was just frustrated. I was exhausted. I still wanted to sell skills and still love the experience, but financially, it just wasn't making sense anymore. That's when one of the guys recommended me to maybe do this part-time, because a good amount of the people that were working at my job were doing it part-time and had another job or something else going on. And that's actually what he was doing. He would do 3 days working as a security guard and then 3 days working here. And he told me that's something, if money is that much of an issue, that's something I could try to do, doing part-time this and then part-time a base salary job. And I thought that was a good idea. So I told my boss about it on Thursday, saying I would take these next 2 days as a break, because mentally, like with sales, it's not going right, and to also look for a job. Now, he didn't like the idea at all. He wanted me to be like fully in or out. And at first I didn't understand it, because like most people there, not most people there, but a good amount of people there were doing part-time. Really, what I think it was is that he just wanted to push me to do full-time more, because he wants more people to do full-time, obviously. And also, like he said, that if you're gonna do part-time and then get another job, do you think your sales are gonna increase? And honestly, he's right, they're not. Like, if you don't focus fully on sales, like I said, being fully in, they were probably not gonna get better. He gave me 24 hours to think about it, and he said that in the night he would call me and choose my final decision, like if I'm out or in. And I told him I was out. Okay, so now I'm going to explain to you guys why I decided to quit and why the finances were such an issue. And it's because driver seating isn't a very expensive service. On average, I would sell a driver for $350 all the way to $500, and you can go lower than $350. So I would make a 15% commission off that, so that would be $50 to $75 per sale. And that's nothing. To make a bit of money, you would have to make 3 sales a day just to make a little bit of a minimum wage job, working 8 hours at a minimum wage job. And before you think that because I quit now I hate door to door, that's actually not the case. I'm really glad I did door to door. It was one of the best experiences I've ever got. And like just even sales wise, like the sales skills you get from there is real. I learned a lot, like especially since the company I decided to stick with was a smaller company. it was actually like owned by two people. I really got to see a bit more of like the inside of like how a business is really ran. And those two guys that owned the company were actually super young. They were 19 and 21, running like a 500k plus business company, you know. And that made me really realize like, yeah, okay, like I can get to that level. This is really possible because you know you see these kids online, you know, talking about making like 10k a month, whatever it is. But like you know, at this point we know that most of them are just larpers. But like this is the actual people making this type of money. So like it made me really be like, yeah, this is possible. Hopefully this video gave you a more realistic view on how door-to-door is. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I'll see you for the next one.